They say symbols hold power, but what if one of them doesn't just represent reality, it foretells it? For thousands of years, one shape has appeared in the shadows of human history, carved into temples, drawn in secret manuscripts, and hidden in the geometry of the stars. The pentagram, a symbol of divine perfection, a seal of protection, and, according to some, a prophecy. Because if you trace its 5 points across time, from the temples of Babylon to the cathedrals of Europe, you'll find a pattern that always reappears when the world is about to change, when one era collapses and another begins. The ancients called it the mark of Venus. Philosophers saw it as the sign of man, the microcosm of creation. But mystics, they whispered something different. They believed the pentagram was a cosmic clock, counting down to the end of an age. Every revolution of this star in the heavens, every celestial alignment, has coincided with the rise and fall of empires, with the birth of new philosophies and the death of old gods. And now, it's happening again. For the first time in 8 years, Venus has completed its sacred dance with Earth, drawing once more a perfect pentagram in the sky. Coincidence? Or a signal that the cycle has begun again, that another era is ending right before our eyes? As wars erupt, systems decay, and the digital replaces the divine, the symbol of the ancients re-emerges, not as a warning of doom, but as a mirror of what humanity has become. Because the prophecy doesn't speak of destruction, it speaks of transformation. The question is, are we ready to understand what it means? In this film, we'll uncover the hidden history of the pentagram, from the geometry of creation to the forbidden teachings of the mystery schools. We'll decode how this symbol traveled across millennia, through secret orders, temples, and the minds of those who dared to see beyond illusion. And we'll ask the question few have the courage to face. Is the prophecy unfolding now? If you feel drawn to symbols, to mysteries, to the hidden pulse of the universe, you were meant to find this video. Stay until the end, because what you'll discover may change the way you see time itself. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe to this channel and leave a like. It helps this message reach others who are searching for the same truth, those who sense that the veil between worlds is thinner than ever before. Now, let's begin. The prophecy of the pentagram awaits. Long before the pentagram became a forbidden emblem whispered by priests and feared by the ignorant, it was a key, a sacred geometry etched into the consciousness of the earliest civilizations. In the sands of Mesopotamia, archaeologists have found fragments of clay tablets marked with 5 intersecting lines, drawn not as decoration, but as invocation. The Sumerians called it the sign of heaven, a symbol used to represent the divine order that governed both the gods and the stars. From there it traveled to ancient Egypt, engraved into amulets worn by priests of Thoth, the god of wisdom and hidden knowledge. They believed that within those 5 points lay the secret balance of the universe: spirit, air, fire, water, and earth, a harmony that allowed creation itself to exist. To the Greeks, it became a mathematical revelation. Pythagoras and his disciples saw the pentagram not as superstition, but as proof that nature followed divine proportions. The ratio that governs its shape, the golden mean, was to them the signature of the Creator. When they drew it, they were not sketching a symbol of belief but a mirror of perfection. The human body itself echoed its lines: 5 extremities, 5 senses, 5 elements. Man, they said, was a living pentagram, a reflection of the cosmos folded into flesh. In those early days, the star pointed upward, the single tip rising toward the divine. It was a declaration of spirit's triumph over matter, a reminder that humanity's highest point was its connection to the eternal. The Babylonians mapped it onto the heavens, linking its points to the movements of Venus, the radiant morning star. Every 8 years, Venus dances with Earth, tracing in the sky a perfect pentagonal path. To the ancients, this was no coincidence but a celestial ritual, a heavenly reminder that the cosmos breathed in sacred rhythm. When the planet of beauty completed its dance, new ages began. Harvests flourished, kingdoms rose, and philosophies were born. Yet the power of the pentagram was not limited to the stars. The Hebrews used it as a symbol of truth and protection, calling it the Seal of Solomon, capable of binding demons and invoking angels. Early Christians saw in it the 5 wounds of Christ, a mark of divine sacrifice that transcended death. It adorned cathedrals and sacred texts, standing as proof that geometry was God's language. But as centuries passed, light turned to shadow. When the world began to fear what it could not understand, the pentagram fell from grace. The Church, in its hunger to control the unseen, recast the ancient emblem as a mark of heresy. Scholars who once studied its perfection were silenced. Temples that carried its design were desecrated. And yet, through the darkness, the symbol survived, hidden in the margins of alchemical manuscripts, carved in the stone of secret chambers, and whispered among the initiates who knew its true meaning. They taught that every age of humanity begins with alignment, when the geometry of the heavens mirrors the geometry of the soul. When the two fall out of harmony, chaos reigns, and a new cycle begins. The pentagram was never a promise of power, but a prophecy of balance restored. And as the ancients warned, when the star reappears in the sky with perfect precision, humanity will stand once more at the threshold of transformation, the end of one era and the birth of another. Throughout ancient mystery schools, there was a belief whispered only to initiates that geometry was not created by man but discovered within the bones of the universe. Every number, every line, every angle was a fragment of divine intelligence. Among all shapes, none held greater reverence than the pentagram, because hidden within its proportions was a prophecy, an encrypted message left by forces older than history itself. The ancients understood that the cosmos moved in patterns. Stars did not wander aimlessly. They danced in harmony, weaving cycles that echoed in the tides, the seasons, and the very rhythm of the human heart. The pentagram, with its perfect mathematical symmetry, mirrored those celestial laws. Its 5 points represented not just the elements but epochs, ages of transformation that followed one another in the eternal spiral of time. When Pythagoras gazed upon the pentagram, he saw not only geometry but destiny. The ratio known as phi, the golden mean, was to him the key to understanding why creation unfolds as it does. Phi governed the growth of shells, the orbit of planets, the proportions of the human body. It was as if reality itself had been designed with a single divine blueprint. To the initiates, this meant that history too moved according to that same golden proportion. The rise and fall of civilizations followed invisible laws, and when the pattern reached its breaking point, the old world would dissolve so a new one could emerge. The pentagram, they said, was a clock that counted these cycles, not in years, but in vibrations. In ancient temples from Sumer to Alexandria, its image was drawn on the ground during sacred rites. Priests would stand within it, believing that by aligning their bodies with its geometry, they could tune themselves to the frequency of the cosmos. They called this the synchronization of worlds, a moment when the divine and the human overlapped. According to esoteric tradition, there are 5 great eras in the evolution of consciousness, each represented by one of the star's points. The first was the Age of Fire, when humanity discovered creation through destruction, the dawn of will. The second, the Age of Air, gave birth to thought and language. The third, the Age of Water, brought emotion and art. The fourth, the Age of Earth, manifested material power and science. But the fifth, the uppermost point, has yet to fully emerge. It is the Age of Spirit, the time of synthesis when man and cosmos reunite. And every transition between ages has been marked by celestial signs, the alignment of Venus, solar eclipses, and the return of rare cosmic patterns. The Hermetic texts speak of a great rotation of the star of love that signals the end of an age of matter. The Mayans, too, encoded the same geometry in their calendar, counting cycles of 5 that end in purification. Even the alchemists of the Middle Ages, though persecuted, preserved fragments of this truth in their symbols, calling it the marriage of heaven and earth. The prophecy hidden in the pentagram was never about the destruction of the world, but its metamorphosis. Just as the snake sheds its skin, humanity too must shed what no longer serves its evolution. Yet every rebirth demands a death, the death of an era, of illusions, of systems that have lost their harmony. And when those systems collapse, the same sacred pattern emerges again, etched invisibly into the unfolding of history. Today, when the world trembles on the edge of chaos, when old institutions decay and humanity questions its own identity, the pentagram rises once more, not as superstition, but as a mirror. It reminds us that we are inside the cycle, not outside of it. The geometry of prophecy is repeating, and those who can see beyond the surface understand that what is ending is not the world itself, but the illusion that it was ever separate from the divine. At the dawn of the Middle Ages, a shadow began to fall over the ancient light. The pentagram, once a radiant emblem of balance and divine proportion, was turned upside down, its meaning inverted by fear, ignorance, and the hunger for control. What had been a symbol of harmony became a mark of blasphemy. Yet behind this inversion lay one of the deepest psychological truths ever hidden from humanity. The world does not fear evil. It fears the mirror that shows it its own shadow. When the single point of the pentagram faced upward, it represented spirit ruling over matter, the divine governing the physical. But when turned downward, the image seemed to proclaim the opposite, matter dominating spirit, instinct conquering intellect, desire eclipsing virtue. The Church seized upon this inversion as proof of rebellion against God, and with it began centuries of persecution against those who still held the old wisdom. But the truth is more complex. Within the mystery schools of Europe, the inverted star was never meant as a symbol of evil. It represented descent, the soul's journey into the underworld, the confrontation with the hidden aspects of the self. The alchemists called this phase nigredo, the blackening, the stage of dissolution before transmutation. Only by facing the darkness within could the initiate attain illumination. To deny it was to remain trapped in illusion. The pentagram's reversal was therefore not corruption, but revelation. It exposed the polarity at the heart of existence, the eternal dance between light and shadow. When misunderstood, it became feared. When understood, it became the key to transcendence. Yet humanity, unready to confront its own shadow, projected that darkness outward onto symbols, demons, and scapegoats. It was easier to burn the image than to face the truth it revealed. Carl Jung, centuries later, would describe this same phenomenon as the projection of the collective shadow. What a society refuses to acknowledge within itself, it demonizes in the world around it. The pentagram became the perfect vessel for this projection. The inverted star was associated with Lucifer, the light-bringer, the angel cast down not for defying God, but for daring to seek understanding. In esoteric tradition, Lucifer was not the enemy of the divine, but the spark that forced humanity to awaken through contrast. He represented the descent of spirit into matter, the same descent the soul must take to rediscover its origin. But as fear grew, nuance was lost. By the 14th century, the pentagram had become a weapon of accusation, its presence enough to condemn one to the stake. The symbol of the human microcosm was twisted into an emblem of sin. Secret orders such as the Templars and Rosicrucians preserved its meaning in silence, embedding it within their architecture and rites. They taught that the two pentagrams, the upright and the inverted, were not opposites but complements, depicting the two halves of the great work, the ascent and descent of consciousness. One pointed toward heaven, the other toward earth, forming together the hexagram, the union of opposites, the marriage of above and below. The modern mind, conditioned to see in dualities, missed this synthesis. But those who studied deeply understood, when the world demonizes a symbol, it is revealing the very part of itself it cannot yet integrate. And so, the inversion of the pentagram marked not just the corruption of a sacred sign, but a stage in humanity's psychological evolution. The fall into darkness was necessary for the light to rediscover its own source. Each age of shadow prepares the next illumination. When the last fear is faced, the star turns upright again, restoring balance between the seen and unseen. Thus, the prophecy continues, not of destruction, but of transformation through understanding. Hidden beneath cathedrals, within the echoing halls of ancient monasteries, and behind the guarded doors of alchemical societies, The pentagram lived on when the world above had forgotten its meaning. The secret orders knew what the common world could not bear to see, that symbols are bridges between worlds, and those who learn to cross them hold the keys of creation itself. Among the first to preserve the pentagram's wisdom were the Pythagoreans, whose legacy survived through the ages under different names: the Templars, the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons. Each of them understood that the star was not simply geometry, it was a map of initiation, a diagram of the human soul's ascent through 5 levels of mastery. The Templars, who guarded the Holy Land and the mysteries buried beneath Solomon's temple, inscribed the 5-pointed star into their architecture and banners. To them, it represented the divine order hidden beneath chaos, the invisible pattern of God's design on earth. When the Church accused them of heresy and idolatry, it was not because they worshipped darkness, but because they possessed a truth that could not be controlled, that the divine spark lives within every man. The Rosicrucians later reinterpreted this as the 5-fold flower of the Spirit, the blossoming of consciousness through stages of purification, illumination, love, wisdom, and will. For them, the pentagram was a living seal, each point a gate of initiation. Those who meditated upon it could awaken dormant faculties within themselves, aligning microcosm and macrocosm. They saw in the pentagram the human being standing between heaven and earth, arms and legs outstretched, head uplifted toward the divine. A reflection of Leonardo's Vitruvian Man centuries before it was drawn. The Freemasons, inheriting fragments of these older mysteries, wove the symbol into their rituals as the blazing star, representing divine illumination and the inner light that guides the initiate through the labyrinth of ignorance. In their temples, the pentagram glowed above the altar, its center containing the letter G, the generative principle, the geometry of God, and the gnosis of creation. In alchemy, it appeared as the quintessence, the 5th element that emerges when the 4 base elements are brought into perfect harmony. The alchemists believed that the philosopher's stone was not a literal substance, but a state of being, the realization of the pentagram within. They depicted this with the image of a man standing in a star, radiant, crowned with light, having transcended the limitations of matter. To the Hermeticists, the 5 points represented the 5 stages of the magnum opus: calcination, dissolution, conjunction, fermentation, and coagulation, the spiritual alchemy of transforming lead into gold, ignorance into wisdom, man into God. Even in the Christian mystic tradition, fragments of this knowledge persisted. The cathedrals of Chartres, Notre Dame, and Rosslyn were designed according to pentagonal geometry, their stained glass windows encoding cosmic proportions that linked Earth to the heavens. To the untrained eye, they were mere decorations, but to initiates, they were instruments, architectural resonances that aligned human consciousness with divine order. In every secret brotherhood, the pentagram was a reminder of the eternal covenant. As above, so below. Its 5 points were not to be worshipped, but understood. The symbol was a mirror, and only the pure of heart could see their own reflection within it. Those who sought power fell into illusion. Those who sought truth saw the divine face staring back. The orders preserved the prophecy as well, the belief that when humanity once again grasps the sacred geometry of existence, a new era will dawn. The fall of the Templars, the silence of the alchemists, and the veiled rituals of the Masons were all part of a long guardianship, ensuring that the knowledge would survive until the world was ready to receive it. The prophecy of the pentagram spoke of a time when science, mysticism, and spirit would reunite, ending the great division of man. They called it the return of the 5th element, the rebirth of the quintessence. And as history repeats, their warning remains. When the world loses its balance between heaven and earth, the star begins to turn, heralding the close of an age and the awakening of another. High above the noise of the earth, where silence reigns and only the pulse of creation can be heard, the pentagram reappears, not drawn by human hands but etched in the heavens themselves. For every 8 years, Venus traces a perfect 5-pointed star in the sky as it orbits the sun in harmony with the earth. To the ancients, This cosmic dance was not a coincidence. It was a divine signature, the celestial mirror of the same geometry that shapes our own existence. They called it the Rose of Venus, the star of beauty and love that weaves the pentagram across the heavens, marking the rhythm of ages. The astronomers of Babylon and Egypt mapped this pattern and noticed something profound. Each time the rose completed its full cycle, a great shift followed in the story of mankind. Crops flourished or failed, kingdoms rose or fell, prophets were born, and civilizations changed direction. They believed the heavens were a book written in light, and that the geometry of Venus was its most sacred verse. The pattern was not just visual, it was energetic. Every conjunction between Earth and Venus emitted a resonance, a harmonic vibration that ancient mystics claimed could influence consciousness itself. They taught that when the two planets aligned in the heart of the sun, a veil between worlds thinned, allowing new ideas, inventions, and revelations to descend. The Greeks associated this celestial geometry with Aphrodite, goddess of love and harmony. The Mayans recorded it in their codices, linking it to the Quetzalcoatl cycle, the feathered serpent who brings wisdom to mankind. Even the early Christians, aware of its mystery, saw in it the Star of Bethlehem, heralding a new era of spiritual birth. Over the centuries, astrologers noticed that each pentagram drawn by Venus subtly shifted in orientation, completing a full rotation every 200 years. To them, this slow turning was the heartbeat of the world, the cosmic clock ticking between epochs. When the points of the celestial star aligned with specific constellations, especially those tied to the balance of light and dark, times of upheaval followed. Empires crumbled, religions transformed, and human values were rewritten. Some called it coincidence, but the initiates saw design. They taught that the universe breathes through geometry, and that each exhalation marks the end of one age, and the inhalation the beginning of another. We are now living in the breath between. In recent decades, astronomers have confirmed what the ancients already knew. The orbit of Venus and Earth form a near-perfect pentagonal resonance. The last completion of this pattern coincided with global revolutions in thought, technology, and spirituality. And as Venus completes yet another rose in the heavens, the world once again trembles at the threshold of transformation. The prophecy of the pentagram, written in the stars, speaks of 5 great cycles in human history. 4 have passed, the ages of fire, air, water, and earth. Each ended in renewal, born from chaos and revelation. The 5th, the age of spirit, is now awakening. It is said that when Venus's celestial pentagram aligns with the heart of Leo, the star of consciousness ignites within mankind, calling the hidden 5th element to rise. This alignment, rare and perfect, symbolizes the return of divine awareness to the physical realm. But such awakening never comes gently. The closing of an era always shakes the foundations of the old. As we watch the world fracture, through conflict, technological obsession, and the loss of meaning, the heavens silently repeat their message. Endings are beginnings disguised as collapse. The same geometry that governs the petals of a flower governs the fall of empires. Nothing dies without purpose, it transforms. The ancients believed that those who understood this pattern could stand within chaos without fear, because they recognized it as the breath of the cosmos resetting itself. The celestial pentagram, therefore, is not an omen of doom, but a reminder of destiny. The world below mirrors the heavens above, and humanity's crises are reflections of the same cycle of renewal that the planets enact eternally. When the 5th point of Venus completes its path and the rose blooms once more, the veil will thin again, and the world will remember what it has always known, that light and darkness, order and destruction, creation and decay, are all expressions of the same divine rhythm guiding the evolution of the soul. The prophecy of the pentagram was never meant to terrify mankind. It was written as a mirror for the soul, a reminder that the cosmos outside and the consciousness within are bound by the same sacred law. Those who gaze at the star and see only geometry miss its true power, for the real pentagram lives inside every human being. Its 5 points correspond to the 5 gateways of transformation that shape the inner world: mind, emotion, body, soul, and spirit. When these are out of harmony, Life fractures, confusion rises, and the individual reflects the same imbalance that topples civilizations. But when they align, the human becomes a living temple, a vessel of equilibrium capable of channeling divine intelligence into the material realm. The end of an era, therefore, is not merely a cosmic event, it is a psychological one. The fall of external systems mirrors the collapse of outdated inner structures, the beliefs, fears, and illusions that once defined our identity. In esoteric philosophy, this collapse is not a tragedy, but a liberation. Just as the alchemist must allow base metals to dissolve before gold can emerge, the collective consciousness must descend into chaos before the higher order can manifest. The Pentagram's prophecy is a map for this metamorphosis. Each point is an initiation, a test of awareness. The first point, Earth, asks if we can release attachment to what is decaying. The second, Water, asks if we can feel without drowning in emotion. The third, Air, demands clarity of thought amid confusion. The fourth, Fire, challenges us to act with courage instead of destruction. And the fifth, Spirit, calls us to remember what we truly are, not bodies of flesh, but fragments of the infinite. When all five harmonize, the inner star shines, and the prophecy fulfills itself not in the heavens but in the heart. This is why the mystics said that apocalypse does not mean destruction, but unveiling. The word itself, from Greek apocalypsis, means revelation, the lifting of the veil. What ends is ignorance, what begins is awareness. Humanity stands now on that threshold. The shadow we see in the world, the wars, the despair, the emptiness, are not punishments from above, but projections of the collective soul as it confronts its own inversion. The same process that once turned the pentagram upside down is now playing out within us. Our task is to turn it upright again, to restore spirit above matter, consciousness above consumption, love above fear. The great mystics warned that when mankind forgets its divine geometry, the world becomes mechanical and soulless. But they also promised that when the pentagram awakens within even a few, the balance will begin to return. Because transformation does not start with nations, it starts with one mind, one heart, one awakening. The prophecy speaks of a time when the fifth element, spirit, will permeate the other four, transmuting them. Science will rediscover its soul, religion will shed its dogma, art will become revelation, and humanity will once again remember its place within the cosmic order. The ancients called this the Great Synthesis, the restoration of the divine image. It is not a future event, but a state of consciousness waiting to be realized. Each of us is both the prophecy and its fulfillment. The 5 points are already within us, waiting to align. The question is not when the new era will come, it is whether we will recognize it when it arrives. The stars are already moving, the rose of Venus is already blooming, and the rhythm of creation continues its eternal pulse. The outer world trembles, but within that trembling lies the birth of a higher harmony. Those who listen with the inner ear can hear it, the hum of the universe tuning itself back to truth. The pentagram, ancient and eternal, does not predict doom. It invites awakening. As the final lines of the prophecy unfold, the message becomes unmistakably clear. The pentagram does not foretell destruction, but remembrance. It is the echo of a forgotten covenant between humanity and the cosmos, a silent promise that when the world falls into darkness, the pattern will reappear to guide us home. Look around. The same energies that once moved through the stars now stir within us. The old world trembles because the new one is already being born. What we call chaos is the sound of the universe rearranging itself into higher order. The fall of empires, the collapse of systems, the crumbling of certainty, all are signs that the geometry of history is turning once again. And somewhere within that vast rotation, your life, your choices, your awakening play their part. You are not separate from the prophecy. You are its continuation. The same divine proportion that governs galaxies also beats within your chest. When you breathe, the cosmos breathes with you. When you awaken, a point of light ignites on the infinite star of creation. This is why the ancients taught that salvation is not collective, but individual. The new era begins the moment one person chooses awareness over ignorance, creation over fear, love over division. The pentagram turns upright, not in the heavens first, but in the human soul, and as more awaken, the geometry of the earth itself will shift. The prophecy is not written in fate, it is written in choice. Every act of understanding, every spark of compassion, every conscious thought realigns the world toward balance. We stand at the edge of an age, watching the old dissolve like dust, and the light of a new dawn bleeding through the cracks. The star is rising again. The fifth element, spirit, calls you to remember what you truly are, a fragment of the divine equation, a living expression of the same intelligence that shaped the stars. So, when you look upon the pentagram, do not see superstition. See yourself. The end of an era is not the end of the world, it is the beginning of truth. Those who hold fear will see darkness. Those who hold light will see revelation. The symbol has chosen its moment to return, and now it has chosen you to understand it. This is not coincidence, you were meant to hear this. The prophecy is not about something coming, it is about something awakening. And as one era fades, another breathes its first. If you felt something awaken while listening, something ancient, familiar, a spark of recognition, then you are part of this unfolding. Help this message reach others who are searching for the same light. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this film so the symbol may continue its work through every soul ready to receive it. Because somewhere, above and within, the star is already shining, and the new era has just begun.